tablets everywhere. What's going on, guys? I'm Aaron from PhoneDog.com, and you know, it's 2011. Tablets are becoming the big thing. The Apple iPad 2's out. The Motorola XOOM's out. First honeycomb Android-powered tablet, and it has a dual-core processor to boot. Then you have the iPad 2, dual-core processor as well. Has some revisions to the original, like a camera on the front, camera on the back as well, and some other improvements. Which one's the best? Which one's the most awesomest? Most awesomest? We're going to roll with that. Most awesomest? We'll find out in the dogfight. Two awesome tablets, but only one can be the winner in a phone dogfight. You have the Apple iPad 2 here, brand new, just came out a few days ago, or a few weeks ago, I guess now. Cameras on the front, cameras on the back, definite improvement to the original device, much thinner and lighter. 1.33 pounds here. You have the metal on the back, and it comes in 16, 32, and 64 gigabyte flavors. You do get it. You can get it either with Wi-Fi, you can get it with AT&T, or with Verizon. Pricing starts at $499 for Wi-Fi only, 16 gigabytes. It goes all the way up to $829.99 for 64 gigabytes on one of the wireless carriers, AT&T or Verizon. This does come in black or in white. Ship times as of right now, 4 to 5 weeks on the Apple Store, and who knows, if you can get your hands on one in the store, more power to you, because I haven't been able to find one. I'm not on the look for one for myself, but I haven't been able to find one, or just in my asking around. So power button on the top, 3.5mm headphone jack on the top, and then you have your typical volume rocker, and then your switch to turn sound on and off, and then you have the typical Apple proprietary charging port there in the bottom. So 9.7-inch display, unchanged there, but it is running iOS 4.3. It has Apple's dual-core A5 processor, so it is definitely up to spec, at least theoretically, with the Motorola XOOM, which is the first tablet to offer NVIDIA's Tegra 2 1 gigahertz dual-core processor. So it's up to snuff, and you know, it's running the latest version of iOS. Then you have the Motorola XOOM out on Verizon for $799.99. There is not a Wi-Fi version available just yet. You can see all those fingerprints. No Wi-Fi version available just yet, but it's $799.99 full retail, $599.99 on a 2-year contract. So, you know, it's not the cheapest in the world, but that said, when you compare it to the iPad equivalents on Verizon, still, you know, the price gap drops a little bit, but still it is kind of expensive. It's the first tablet to run Android 3.0 Honeycomb, which is, you know, of course, Google's tablet-centric Android operating system. So you can see the changes here just from what you've seen from Android 2.2 and 2.3 on the smartphone. Some significant differences, which we'll cover in the video. But just overall, design very different here. 3.5mm headphone jack on the top, and you see that little slot. It's a micro SD card slot and an LTE SIM card slot. I'll show you, I'll pull it out here. This device is capable of taking advantage of Verizon's 4G LTE network. That said, it's not enabled right now, and there's no word just yet on when exactly it's going to be enabled. You know, Motorola has promised, and Verizon have promised soon, but there's this whole hubbub as to whether you're going to be able to do it yourself. You're going to have to send it back to Motorola for 6 days. So I just imagine, it sounds like a PR nightmare waiting to happen. But that's just me. Front-facing camera, 5-megapixel camera on the back with a flash, and then over here on the bottom you have HDMI port, HDMI out, micro USB port, and then your proprietary charging port is here. Volume rocker on the left side, and then you kind of have this glossy front, and then kind of this matte battery cover. 3,250 milliamp battery here, 25 watt per hour battery here. You know, those are obviously two different terms. Battery life has been pretty decent on both of these devices thus far. I can't remember the last time I charged this device. So you have two distinctively different operating systems here, and even though they're both optimized to some extent for a tablet, they're very different. You have iOS 4.3, intended for first-time tablet users or first-time smartphone users if you're using it on the iPhone, or, you know, first-time MP3 player users if you're using it on the iPod Touch. But very easy to use. It's this app, you know, this kind of widget layout. You can custom move the widgets around. It's very simple. When I show this to a family member that's not familiar with phones, mom, grandmother, anything like that, very easy to catch on to. Then you have something like Honeycomb, where, you know, to me it is a powerhouse. There are additional features in Android that you don't get in iOS, but it does take a little bit more time to learn and to get used to. So, you know, it's one of those things. It's like you have the sports car, and it is harder to drive, but if you take the time to learn how to drive it, the experience is so much better. or you have something like this that's definitely great in its own right, don't get me wrong, and there's a wonderful advantage to having a device like the iPad 2 in the market, but you know, it lacks in some things like widgets and some of the other stuff that comes in Honeycomb or in Android. You know, Google just full on Google support with Gmail, with Google Talk, with native Google Talk using the camera, and more. So you know, it's one of those things. If you take the time, you learn how to use it. I think the Zoom may fit people better. But then you have somebody like mom, grandma. I mean, there's a huge market for iOS, and that combined with the ecosystem with iTunes just makes this device almost unbeatable. So the benefit here, they both have fantastic web browsers, but we're going to have to pick one, and we'll see here the iOS browser, which in my opinion has fallen a little bit behind with something like Honeycomb. I mean, absolutely fantastic browser, and I'm not an Android or an iOS fanboy by any means, but the implementation of kind of this Chrome-like web browser in Honeycomb, I just was blown away with this. Let's go to phonedog.com. We'll load that up, and while that's loading over here, we'll load the same thing up on the iPad. Very good, and again, it goes back to this whole, very easy to use. Pop that up. And very easy to use, very simplistic. But still, in comparison just to the way it looks, in comparison to, can't fit these in the camera screen, but in comparison to this Chrome browser on the Zoom, I think it falls a little bit behind. Pinch to zoom, though, fantastic on this. You can see it's already loaded up. I mean, that's exceptionally fast. I mean, that's beyond quick. You can see that dual-core processor really at work. Pinch to zoom works well. Double tap works great. Even when it's zoomed in, the text looks fantastic. No lag whatsoever. I mean, I was doing this in the review video. No hesitation. There's checkerboarding occasionally, like what you're seeing there, but nothing major. Then on the other hand, you have this one, which is also very quick. I mean, unusually fast. And if you think, you go back to the Android 2.2 and 2.3 browsers, whoops. On the smartphones, the pinch to zoom's decent, but it's not fast by any means. The iPhone definitely takes the cake in the phone world, in my opinion, by the pinch to zoom. Not the case in the tablets, though. Definite tie there. You can see pinch to zoom very good. Double tap out, double tap in. Very smooth, very easy. And no lag whatsoever either. Now the difference lies in the browser platform here. You can see the tabs up there at the top. Phone Dog, I just click, bring up a new tab, click, bring up another tab, click, bring up a third one, and then I have my settings over here. And this is all part of Honeycomb. It's really one of those things, like when you use it for more than about 15 minutes, you kind of realize that it's built on the same structure as 2.2 and 2.3. And once you realize where everything is, it becomes much easier to use. So you have this, which is kind of the equivalent, of your menu button on your phone. You click the menu button here, new tab, you can find on page, share page, we can go to settings from here and see the browser settings, then you'll see down here, I can click that one to go home, I can click that one to see what's open, and then I can click here to go back. So I can go back, and then let's close that browser. I can bookmark, as you can see, search, look at the bookmarks, and see my history, go back, and then refresh and do things like that. So you can use it in portrait or in landscape, obviously. And then you have your notifications bar here at the bottom. And not that this is browser related, but I wanted to cover it while I'm thinking about it. Notifications bar's changed a little bit. It's different from the phone. There's no drop-down notifications bar on this device. It's really tablet optimized. You click in that bottom right-hand corner, it brings up a larger date and time thing, shows Verizon Wireless, shows the network, and shows your battery life. Then it shows these little things whenever you install an application. This is kind of like the notifications that pop up on your phone when you have a new text message, new email. They'll show up here in separate little boxes, and you can click the X box to get rid of those. Click the X box, no pun intended. And then you can click that, and you can see your settings, airplane mode, Wi-Fi, lock screen, etc. So, easy to use, but then again, a new user may look at this, somebody that's never used Android may look and say, what in the heck is that? How do I auto-adjust or how do I lock my screen where it doesn't rotate? I don't know what this means, so they may not be able to find it. So, again, not the most intuitive, but a definite improvement over 2.2 and 2.3. Now, on this one, very smooth, very clean, very solid. We'll go back in here, and you can see it looks almost identical to iOS on the iPhone and on the iPod Touch. Click there, open up a new page. It'll show how many pages are open, and we'll click there, go back to Phone Dog, and then you can see I can add bookmark, add to home screen. So on this front, nothing's changed from, or a few things have changed from the original iPad. You have your bookmarks here as well. And I can do my pinch to zoom thing, go forward, go back, and then get out of it when I'm done. Let's take a look at the keyboards on both of these devices. You load up Notes, for example, and let's see, go to a new note, we'll start that. And one of the things I like about this one, or this keyboard rather, is the ability, and this is not in the iPhone, not in the iPod Touch, the ability to get rid of the keyboard when you don't want it. So let's say you're typing along and you don't want the keyboard anymore. You can click that button in the bottom right hand corner and get rid of it. Whereas on the iPhone, you have to go out and come back in order to get rid of the keyboard. That's what it looked like in portrait mode. One of the frustrations of holding it in portrait mode is because this device, even though it's a 9.7-inch display, it's a very wide device. So you can see my fingers have a hard time touching. So I can type to an extent like this, how are you doing? Which you can see didn't really come out that well because it is a wide device. Then you have the Zoom on the other hand, which actually has a bigger display, but it's longer and a little bit shorter. So you can see very easy for the thumbs to reach, very easy for the thumbs to type, and I've actually used the portrait keyboard on this with no problem. Now the landscape keyboard, absolutely fantastic, and once we go into that, I'll lay it out here, and let's see. We'll type what do we want to type? Whoa. Let's say the quick brown fox went to the market. Let's see, he went home and had a good weekend. So you can see, easy to type on in the in landscape mode, and then you'll notice that in order to maximize screen real estate, pop. See how I got rid of it. In order to maximize screen real estate, they don't bring the notepad out in landscape mode. They have this kind of organizational thing, and you'll see that all throughout iOS between the calendar in on the iPad or some of the other applications like Contacts, which we'll cover some of this stuff in just a minute. But you'll see that they really maximize that side of the screen when it's in landscape. So they've really done a good job with that. And the Zoom does the same thing. Keyboard on this one, I've been very pleased with as well. Actually, pleasantly surprised with this one. Let's go back and let's go into something where we can take some notes. Apps up here in the right-hand corner. We'll go to we'll go to Gmail, just somewhere where we can take notes. Let's see. Oh man, McTweety. Start up a new message, and you can see that's what the keyboard looks like there. And then here it is in portrait mode. Again, good keyboard, and because it is smaller, let's go down here. We'll compose. I'll type in, say, hey there, how are you doing? So easier to type on because the keys are closer together, or the display is a little bit narrower, rather. The tablet's a little bit longer. So we can go down here, we'll type the quick brown fox. Ready for the weekend. So a little harder, I couldn't see it because of the glare, but you can see Quick Brown Fox is ready for the weekend. The quick. Very easy, no lag whatsoever. Been very impressed with this keyboard. And then you have the settings down here, and you can either go to your input languages or your Android keyboard settings just like you would on your phone. So again, this is that point where you're like, hey, this kind of looks similar to some of the Android builds of the past. It's really just masked by a very pretty tablet-centric user interface. But both keyboards fantastic. This is another place. This is a really hard dogfight because, like the browser, this is another place where I have to give it kind of a tie. Let's take the iPad out of the picture for a minute because it doesn't have one thing that the Motorola Zoom does have, and that's widgets. You can see, and we'll talk a little bit more about Honeycomb while I'm in here. We covered a little bit of it earlier, but there are some differences. You'll notice that Google's up in the left-hand corner. The apps drawer, it's no longer a drawer, it's a button up there, and you can see you can see my apps that I've downloaded throughout the time that I've had the Motorola Zoom. So I can go back and I can add something, and this is where, on a phone, to give you a comparison to an Android phone, is where you tap and hold the screen and it would bring up that menu. That's what it does here. So you have this organizational kind of thing here going on: widgets, app shortcuts, wallpapers, and more. So we can change the wallpaper from here. We'll go to the gallery and we'll pick one. Camera, no, I don't like any of those. Let's go to wallpapers, change it to that one, and then bam, we're changed. So I click on that again, you can see widgets, app shortcuts, and more. And there are some really useful widgets: the analog clock, bookmarks, books, CNN, which is an app I downloaded, but you have the calendar widget, and these are what I really like, the Gmail widgets, and I'll show you those briefly. You have a couple of home screens here, and you can see those in detail. I didn't mean to go out so early. You can see those in detail when you're trying to bring widgets, but you can bring on the Twitter widget, for example, and you can drag it to a specific home screen, then when you click there, bam, it's already on there. So you can scroll over. And one thing I like, dynamic widgets. You can see no longer is it just this little inbox widget with Old Man McTweety. I can actually scroll through my inbox from here and click on a message and access it right away. So go back to CNN as well. Very easy to navigate through those dynamic widgets. Happen to really be impressed. And we'll go to the books, for example, same thing. And same thing with my bookmarks. So those dynamic widgets, all of which iOS doesn't have as of yet.